Codie Sanchez did not build a $12 million sales funnel by following the rules. In fact, she broke almost every law in the marketing book. However, I think that's why it worked. And this strategy took her from a burnt out corporate exec to building a $12 million sales funnel in just a few years. And she didn't start with paid ads or fancy funnels. She started with a strategy that a few years ago, most people would call flat out weird. And in this video, we're breaking down how she did it step by step and why this unconventional way to build sales funnels might be the best way to build them this year. So if we look at this from a 30,000 foot view, it starts to look kind of like a spider web, but this is going to make a lot more sense as we go through it and where the bulk of the revenue is coming from inside of the sales funnel. So let's start with where she started, which is primarily on organic traffic. And then we'll dive into how she's adding in paid ads now to scale this thing like wildfires. All right, so one thing that's really interesting as we start to look at this is it's kind of like this spray and pray rather strategy to getting clients, right? And what I mean by that is when you have an organic audience, you're trying to find these ways, these consistent, new, novel ways to keep selling to the same audience, right? The audience is growing, but you also have, like, say you're at 2 million followers, you get to 2.2, you get to 2.4. Those incremental followers, they'll probably convert on old funnels, right? Because they haven't seen those old funnels before. But all of those existing 2 million followers that have not yet converted, and I think that's why Iman Gadzhi's strategy of every few months doing a new challenge with a new angle or a new live event with a new angle works so well. It creates this novelty, and we covered that just a few videos ago, right? So there's a bit of novelty that I think if you're starting with paid ads, you don't need all of this stuff, right? And we'll even get to our paid ads funnel in a minute here and how that's pretty simple and just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But on organic traffic, I think you can have a wider approach. And our clients that have millions of followers, that's kind of what we tend to do with them. We have 4 different funnels that we use throughout the month to convert that traffic into customers, because you don't want to just give the same exact CTA every single day. So that's kind of the strategy that we've been using. Okay, the first thing that Instagram and Twitter goes to is the Linktree, which is kind of funny because the Linktree, like it breaks a lot of the marketing rules, right? You don't want to confuse people. The funnel rule is send them to one place, give them one action to do at that one place, but she doesn't follow that, right? She just sends you to a Linktree. And I would be extremely curious to get data on this. Like if she was like, okay, most people that are on my Instagram, the best action or the best place for them to go is my book, right? Or, they'll learn how to buy a business. This is probably like a free training, or this might be her course right here. Yeah, this is her course right here. So, that might be the best place for people to go, right? And just put that one link in her bio. Would that convert more people into customers? And ultimately, the metric I think you have to look at is, does that result in more money for every single person that clicks the link in the bio? Yes or no? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know there's a lot of things you can do on this, right? So the main paths from once you get on here is order the book, Learn How to Buy Business, which is the Main Street Accelerator, the newsletter that then will push you to other things, or the joining the Business Buying Academy, which is her community. And then there's a few different resources. There's her portfolio, which kind of serves as like social proof, right? This is her holding company. And because what she does is teach people how to buy what she calls boring businesses, this doesn't do anything for her by being here, more than likely, but it gives social proof, right? Because it shows she does what she is teaching, right? This is the same with Iman Gadzhi a few years ago. He would link to his agency, and yes, it brought in some clients, but I think even more so is it showed people like, I'm actually doing what I say I'm doing, which in a world where most people don't, that's very valuable, right? So those are some of the main ways people find on here what funnels actually look like. Well, just a few days ago, this changed, but just a few days ago, there was this web class, which I can see if this is still active. But it was essentially, it's an opt-in for a free web class that she was doing last week on the 8th. And there's a few things I noticed right off the bat that she could improve on this page that I can guarantee are hurting conversions. Number one is like the hierarchy. When I land here, it's not horrible. It says your ownership roadmap, how to buy the perfect business for you. There is a benefit of like perfect business. There's nothing that's like speaking to the end benefit of how much revenue these sorts of businesses can make, right? Or how much profit they can make, etc. However, again, when you're on an organic, like you don't have to put those things in there because people are going to convert, but it might get more conversions. Secondly, if we look at it on mobile first, the form could be above this image because when I land, I can't see the form, right? Whereas if it was above the image, you'd see it right off the bat and you could start it. Secondly, and this is massive, you have first name, last name, email, phone number, and then which best describes you, right? Every single form field you add to your forms is going to decrease conversions depending on what it is by 5 to 40%, I would say, right? Like asking for last name, that's probably a few percent conversion killer. You decrease that, you probably increase conversions by a few percent. Asking for email, you need that, so you got to keep it. If you didn't have it, it'd really increase conversion rate, but you need it. Phone number, it depends, but typically you can see 30, 40% improvement in opt-in rate if you don't have that. That I feel like has changed over the last few years. A few years ago, it seemed like it didn't really matter if you had it on there. And now it does seem consistent that opt-in rate actually goes down. Which best describes you? I'd assume this is probably a 10% conversion killer, especially since it's like this weird drop down. If you had the multiple select right there, I think that would be easier because you could just tap right away. So if this was my form field, I probably would have first name and email and maybe phone number if I knew my sales team was going to dial those leads and turn them into clients. If you're just getting the phone number just for the sake of having it, I might not. However, this was a live masterclass. I actually signed up for this. I don't think I got any texts that was saying like, we're live right now. I might have just missed it, but I don't think I did. Secondly, just small improvement is make this button full width, right? It just makes it pretty hard to not click, makes it super visible, claim my seat. I like that verbiage, right? Rather than like sign up now, you're claiming something. I like that. There's a little bit more information down here. That's good. And then there's some reviews and then another form. If you just strip this down to literally just the headline of the form, I know I say this almost every video, it probably would increase conversions. However, I know I mentioned a few videos ago that we tested adding more below the fold, like reviews and more information about what's actually included, and it got less leads, but the people that actually showed up for the webinar were like 4 times more likely to book calls. So there is a little bit of nuance there. So I wouldn't actually be opposed to it in this instance to keep all this information down below, and they still close out with the CTA beneath. But that form, you could probably add 30% more people opting in for this masterclass by stripping that down. At the very least, if you want all that information, having it as a multiple step survey, right, where it's like, what's your first name, submit, what's your last name, what's your email, you're probably going to get a higher throughput on this page if you did that. Okay, let's move on. So after that, once you submitted it, it went to this thank you page. I don't think there was a ton to say here. You had to add this event to your calendar, which is pretty cool, right? That's going to get people to show up. And then you had some steps. All in all, she's doing what she needs to be doing on that thank you page, which is great. When people were actually on this web class, they pushed them to sign up for the community. So they were sending people straight to a dedicated type form with all the information they need to see if you're a decent fit or potential fit for her community. Like, what is the most attractive thing to you about buying a business? Again, same thing here. Like, if you think about forms, typically if it's easier to submit, you're going to get a higher completion rate. However, of course, there's balance there. Sometimes you want friction because it gets rid of bad people, but it keeps the good people. And your sales team, isn't talking to tire kickers. In this case, this is decent. Like, at least they bold it in a way where you can see like buy versus build, speed and leverage, function and structuring funding and structuring options, the timing of the opportunity, and you can really easily like hit. It's single select, so that's nice. It's not like a drop down that's going to hurt. It's just friction. It's an extra click. It doesn't auto submit me. I think you can change that on Typeform to auto submit. Not a massive thing, but it is nice. What best describes your current situation and motivation to buy a business? And then it asks basically who you are. Again, you could probably make those simpler, but it's not that big of a deal. Do you know what type of business you want to buy? Answer that. What is your desired timeline for acquiring a business? That one's probably somewhat of a qualification question. If you're like 3 years from now, like you might not be a great fit for the community today, so they might not want to waste their time. To help us better understand your goals, which of the following parts of our program do you think would be most valuable for your journey? You answer that one. Again, might not be needed, but it might be warming people up and giving them some good information, maybe something for their sales team to focus on the call. But it's very easy just to ask that question on the call, right? Like, you could literally just ask that same exact question. They're already on the call. How willing and able are you to invest in your education and the growth of your business? This is like the classic question. I don't know if Sam Evans is the first one to do this, but first one I saw it from, and this is like literally copy and paste the exact same one. I hate this question because I just feel like everyone does it. I feel like there's way more creative ways to do it, which actually I think she does later on. That is pretty interesting. How long have you known about Codie? That one, again, very warm-up question. That one, again, is just checking how warm you are. How did you hear about us? That's more information, right, that they just want to know. And then what's your first name, phone number, email? And then when I go to submit that, the next page takes me straight to OneSub. One thing that's really good that they do here is they're adding that UTM into the URL, so it has all my information. So watch this. When I hit continue and I pick a time, what does it do? It fills out the whole form for me, right? So now I don't have to do that again. That's decreasing friction. And you can code that in, send that in the URL to the next page. Form builder using it changes a little bit, but you can code that in pretty easily and decrease that friction. So that's a very, very low lift. So that community that they're sending people to is an $11,000 per year community. And this is another thing that I think she did that wasn't by the book. I don't know exactly when she launched this, but when she started this company, the standard was like, again, going back to Sam Ovens, your 5K to 10K lifetime access program, right? She's built this thing up to 1,200 members. I don't know what the retention rate is from year 1 to year 2, but even if it's 30%, I mean, she's rolling into next year with $3 million in recurring revenue. So at $11,000 a year with 1,200 members, it's over $13 million in ARR that they're going into next year with. Of course, a good amount of people are probably going to cancel, but still they're rolling in with so much ARR into the next year, which is annual recurring revenue. So they're pitching that on a Zoom call. Again, $11,000 to join. It used to be 10. And I love this, right? Like going from 10 to 11, there's probably not much of a difference on conversion rate on the actual sales call. Not much at all. However, it's adding like on 1,200 people, it's an extra $1.2 million a year in extra ARR that they don't have to do another thing for. And she's literally adding an extra $1 million a year in her pocket. Okay, let's look at how she's getting newsletter signups, because this has really been one of the cornerstones of her strategy. And then we're going to dive into the paid ad strategy next. Okay, so this says free your mind, build your bank account. Pretty decent. Like it creates a little bit of curiosity. These newsletter headlines, I don't know why everyone does these like kind of like quick, sound cool headlines rather than like on the free training. It's like, you know, how to buy boring businesses, that cash flow 10%. Like those are very specific, speaking to the end benefit. But on newsletters, it's like people throw all that out the window and they make them like sound cool, which maybe works better. I don't know. I haven't tested it. It says join our community of 750,000 contrarians forging their own paths to financial freedom. Okay, so selling the benefit of achieving financial freedom, giving some social proof of 750,000 people in this, right? And then going over a little bit of what's included. And here, they do this super well. So they're only asking for email, right? Decreasing friction to get people to sign up. And then they're also adding in a little bit of like reducing the fear, uncertainty, and anxiety that comes from giving your email, because they say we'll never spam you or sell your data. So you don't have to worry about that. Another rule she breaks is she's sending people to a page with navigation, right? Which if you go to like your classic, and I was just looking at this one yesterday for Morning Brew, which recently sold, I think, for $75 million, this newsletter. When you come here, the only thing you can do, you can't scroll. I'm trying to scroll right now. It doesn't go anywhere. The only thing you can do is put in your email. And if you look at this on mobile, it's even simpler. It's literally just this. This is the type of landing page that just drives conversions like crazy. Right? The only thing they can do here is probably make the CTA more prominent and maybe test copy. And by making the CTA more prominent, they probably use like this blue, for instance. But that's typically what works well. This is probably hurting conversion rate because now there's things for people to get distracted. It's like if I go to YouTube, I have a news feed eradicator on. So when I land, it just gives me like a quote. I can't see my discovery page, okay? So if I go there to look up, you know, a Codie Sanchez video, for instance, I'm not going to get distracted. I'm not going to get pulled in another direction. However, if I go there, my discovery's on, you've probably felt this so many times. 5 minutes goes by and you're like, wait, what did I come to YouTube for? Oh yeah, you know, I needed to check this one thing. That happens on all of the, you know, the social media platforms. It's the same thing with a website. So when you come here, you're immediately like pulled in different directions. Yes, this is the most prominent thing, but this is definitely hurting conversions. Maybe people are bleeding into other things, but probably not. I recently read actually in Chet Holmes' Ultimate Selling Machine, he talked about a massive improvement in conversions when they went from giving people one thing to do, which was like request a free report or something, from where before they were trying to get people to do the exact same thing, but they had navigation, and it was just an insane improvement. Just absolutely out of this world, almost unbelievable how many more conversions they got when they just stripped all that stuff, right? And this is really what Russell Brunson has popularized over the last few years by talking about these sales funnels. Once you actually join the newsletter, they're taking those subscribers and they are converting them into more applications. So when you go to this, again, it's a lot of the same questions that we already looked at, so we won't talk about those again. But when you get through the application, it's taking you right back to OneSub, right? So they're taking these people that are signing up for the newsletter and they're immediately getting them on a sales call that could convert them into, if they answer correctly on these questions, into an $11,000 a year membership, right? It goes right back to OneSub. And that is a very good way to get more sales calls. You already have these people opting in. They already know, like, and trust you, right? Or at least more than someone who's completely cold. So you might as well send them there. Okay, so what are they doing on ads? This is really interesting because the funnel strategy changes a lot on ads, and partially because if you want to make a return, you have to do these things correctly, which makes me surprised why they're not doing them on the organic side, but we'll dive into this. So most of the ads say send message. So I'm assuming they're pushing to a message where then there's either like mini chat or a setter inside the DMs answering questions and pushing people back to a phone call, right? And the bulk of their revenue, I think, comes from that community. So they're doing about, again, $13 million a year from that community. And they have a lot of these other things as well. But the ones that do have a link, they go here. And look, they're following the rules now. They don't have navigation. They have a very clear headline. They have a video, right? And then right underneath, they have a book your call. They have some social proof. And then down here, they have another book your call. Same kind of rules could apply here. They could probably sweeten this up a little bit, make this button bigger, bring it up a little bit higher. You might not want to do that because then people might click it too quickly. Whereas, you kind of want them to get through the video. But you could definitely sell the benefit here of, book your call to find your boring business, for instance, right? You're selling a little bit to the benefit of what they want. But of course, this goes right back to the type form. So everything pushes there. Let's look at this copy really quick. It says, liberate yourself from serfdom. What the heck is serfdom? Am I just an idiot? Serfdom? What the heck is serfdom? A system of feudal society where peasants or serfs were tied to the land and obligated to work for a lord in exchange for protection. Okay, maybe she says that often. I've never heard that word before. So I would imagine that not a small percentage of people as well have never heard that word before, and it could be hurting conversions. And build a legacy of financial independence by acquiring profitable small businesses. I like this. This is selling to the benefit that people want. It says without starting from scratch, great, check. Investing millions, check. Or taking out huge loans, check. The things they don't want, the things they think they need in order to buy a business, she's selling against those. I love that. Just get rid of that word, serfdom. I mean, I don't know. Test it. Maybe it increases conversions because people are like, wait, what? Serfdom? I must, not be smart enough. Let me watch this video and figure out what the heck serfdom is. But yeah, that is interesting. And it goes right back again to that OneSub, same exact thing. One idea I did have there, I saw Cole Gordon doing this, and I think it's a genius. We should probably do a video on Cole Gordon soon. He sends people to OneSub, and literally, as soon as you select a time on OneSub, so like you saw me there, I selected a time and it took me to the form, and then I had to hit submit. On Cole's, you select a time and it immediately submits the calendar, immediately books your call. When I saw that, I was like, I don't even know how they just did that black magic, but it was amazing, right? It just decreases friction. So I thought that was really, really cool. And I need to look into how you can actually do that one-click schedule implementation, right? I haven't seen their specific thank you page because I don't want to book a call and flood their calendar with fake calls. But I'm sure they have a thank you page that pushes people, to add it to their calendar, right? Do all the same things that we saw in the web class so that people show up, right? That's one of the biggest blockers in a lot of people's funnels in 2025 is people don't show up to the phone calls. So that's their paid ad strategy. They also do they have this live workshop coming up. Not going to dive into that too much because it's kind of just a one-off thing. And they also have these course pages, which, so again, these typically don't work super well. They have like a low ticket one, they have $1,000 one, and this is $11,000 one. And when I say they don't typically work super well, like selling on a sales page, right, which is what this one does for, I think it's $2,000, is kind of hard. The vehicle to sell is a little bit hard. They might sell this on different things. Like I think she did a challenge last month, and I think Jeremy Haynes ran the ads for it. I think he said they did like $3 million in sales on this challenge, like $3.2 million in sales. And I'm pretty sure that they sold the community on. So I don't think they do like webinars, but I heard Russell Brunson in an interview with Ali Abdaal last year talking about how on his 997 course, which is even cheaper, that price point is just really hard to just sell straight over a sales page, and a webinar could work better, right? It's not the best way to sell this, but for her, it's probably just like an extra, I don't know, like maybe a couple $100,000 a month. I have no idea, but it's probably making a couple $1 million a year, I'd assume. And maybe, people on the newsletter can go to it, right? It still works, but like Ali Abdaal was talking about how 0.4% of his website traffic converts into sales. And Russell Brunson pointed out at that price point, that's really good, right? But if you sold that same thing on a webinar, you could get 2% or 3%, right? Also, again, same exact thing. Like on the order form, they even have this navigation. If you think about a Shopify store, they have navigation throughout the whole store, but as soon as you get to checkout, they don't have it, right? Because you just need to do that one specific thing, which is checkout. So remove all that stuff. The rest of this order form looks pretty good. The form's also pretty good. Like it's just email, first name, last name. You might try doing first and last name combined, but that's not gonna be that big of a difference. On address, you might not need that unless you're sending them something physical. At least they don't ask for it again. But if you just ask for zip code, that's a little bit less friction, but probably like on organic, it's probably not that big of a deal. It's also interesting they're pricing right at $2,000. Dan Kennedy has a really good, just a quick email I saw a couple years ago where he talked about how he did a test of, I think it was $399 versus $400, and he also tested $397. And he said between $397 and $399, there was like almost no difference in conversions. But when he went to $400, sure, he's making a few extra bucks per sale, but like conversions dropped pretty substantially. However, I will say like now in this industry, 997 and 999 are so common that I could see like maybe people are kind of just sick of it and just charging $2,000 is just, I don't know, perceived as better. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But typically it is perceived as a better value if you can go at like 1997 or 1999. It doesn't look like they have like easily accessible like Afterpay, Affirm, Klarna. Those are things that would help conversions here as well. Or doing a in-house payment plan or both, right? Last year with one of our clients, we ran a test where they had a $247 item, and we offered an 89 times 3 payment plan. So it ended up being a little bit more than the 247, but we offered that, and we saw no less people took the 247, but about 20% more people took the 89. So what I mean by that, it's like conversions went up by about 20%. And sure, maybe there's some people that take the payment plan, but all in all, it looked like it was just a net positive because we were getting sales that we wouldn't have otherwise got, right? So you could do something similar here on this page. Offer maybe a lot of people do like a 400 times 6, right? That'd work out to be $2,400, I think. So there's a little bit of interest there. Obviously, there's some churn, but on something like this where there's no operational cost that they take on, I don't think they're doing any calls or anything like that, besides maybe group calls. So there's not like an incremental cost that's substantial to where you're going to lose money if someone churns. Right, so I'd probably test that on that page. So that's the bulk of the funnel. There's a page where you can get a little bit more information about the community, which just gives you a little bit. So before you apply, that's super annoying, that parallax. That's like an example of something that's like it stops the scroll, and it's not that big of a deal, but it's just kind of a UX issue that's just not. It doesn't do anything, right? Just have that image is not a parallax. Meet a few of our current members. It gives you a little bit of kind of the things that you get when you join. Don't got it alone, pushing you to schedule a consult. I don't think they go over price on this. At least not, they don't make it super obvious. I forget where I saw the $11,000 price point. It was somewhere on her website. I think it was on this like courses page, but not super important. She also has this homepage, which she sends people to on Facebook. And this kind of acts as a hub to send people, to different places. They have like a lead magnet right here. Again, just it goes back to that spray and pray, right? They're just doing a lot of different things to get you on the email list and kind of move you down the funnel. They have all of this traffic from YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff, and they're moving you down, getting you on the email list, pushing you to web classes, and then you can sign up for the community. And they're indoctrinating you, not in a bad way, but getting you to the point where you're like, oh, this, acquiring a business actually sounds like what I should be doing. But same thing on the form here, like first name, last name, email, phone number. Like I don't see why you need last name. You can identify people, based on their unique email, but I don't know, maybe they're using it for something. They have some blogs, it looks like, and then another opt-in for the email, and they push some of these other things here as well. I'm not opposed at all to like on your homepage pushing to all these different areas and kind of making that a hub for when like people are trying to do their due diligence on you to give them all the information they may need. But just on those funnel pages, like when you're sending people somewhere, removing them. Hermosi does this pretty well. Like all of his lead magnet pages, I think in the footer they have navigation, but on the header they don't, right? It's just one action. But if you go to his website, you can get those same lead magnets, and of course there's navigation there, but you're not inside of the the funnel per se, right? So that I think is all good. She also has her book. What's interesting here is she hasn't done like your typical book funnel, right? Another rule she's breaking is she's just sending people to these different places to buy books, which is way simpler. But it would be an interesting funnel to do this as a free book funnel like Russell Brunson's or Sabri Subi's, where maybe they're doing free plus shipping, or maybe they're charging for it 20, 30 bucks within some upsells. And also, right after they purchase the book, you could send them to a free web class. You can send them something else that then pushes them to a call right after they purchase that. But they haven't gone down that road yet. Maybe they'll try that eventually. But right now, it just kind of sends you to like Amazon and some other places, right? But I'm sure that book also sends them like throughout the book. They're probably hearing about the community. They're hearing about these different things, and then they're becoming more of a believer. And there's probably a good percentage of people that read that book that end up joining something else down the road. So this is a bulk of her funnel. Another thing though that I think is just cannot be understated is her success on YouTube. She has 1.74 million subscribers and her videos crush. I mean, 6 days ago, 42,000 views. 12 days ago, 672,000, 250,000, almost a million. If you go to popular, 5.4 million views, 2.3 million views. Her videos are doing super, super well. That traffic, like, if we go back here in the past 30 days, she's had 6 million views. If you figure like a 1% click-through rate, I think that results in 60,000. I try not to do public math, but I think that results in 60,000 unique visitors. It might be higher than that. Like, I know my CTR is quite a bit higher than that, but maybe it results in 200,000 people. She is sending people here straight to the book, which again is interesting. However, I do think underneath here, the main thing she's sending people to in the actual videos is YouTube. I always wonder why on people's channel pages, they send people other places and they send people right underneath the video. Because like, if this is truly the best place to send them, why would you not send them here as well? I don't know, but that's where she's sending people. So that goes back to, that's the main point of her entire funnel. All right, this has been Codie Sanchez's funnel and how she's making more than $13 million per year. If you add everything together, I'd be surprised if it wasn't getting really close to 20 million, if not more. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one as well, and I'll see you there.